afternoon, or good evening. I think that's going to be how I'm going to start all my podcasts from here on now on, because you just don't know when you're going to watch or listen to this. I'm Pastor Scott Harper with Hope Now and Momentum, and I'm really excited this week. This week is our Independence Week. We celebrate our independence. It is July 4th, not any other date, not any other movement. It is July 4th. Since 1776, and I've got my American flag shirt on today, and I've got a great privilege having my brother, I will officially say brother in love, but my brother Joseph Fields sitting with me, and I've asked him to sit this week. Really, truly, here's the thing is I know you did, I don't even know how many deployments you did in the Army. I know a few places you've been that we can't talk about on air. I don't really know what you did except supply officer, and I'm not sure if that was really supply officer, if I need to put parentheses in, or quotation marks. So it's like supply. But you served in our military, and so if you can give me a little rundown of what you can say that you did, what you're comfortable saying, and then I'd like to kind of know what Independence Day, 4th of July means for you in your heart, what freedom means to you. And then we'll move from both our freedom here in America and who we are as men to what that freedom means spiritually with your relationship with God. And so that's kind of where I kind of want to meander to. If we get there, we'll just kind of start here and work our way. And so I'll let you officially introduce yourself on what you did and who you are, and that kind of thing.
So my name is Joseph Fields. I initially enlisted in 2006. I swore into the Army on September 11th, 2006. And went to boot camp on October the 4th of 2006. I made the decision without anybody knowing. I dropped out of pre-law at University of Georgia and went into the Army. I called my father and went to tell him that I was leaving, and he's like, I said, Dad, I need to tell you something. He's like, no, you don't. He said, when are you leaving? And I said, how do you know? And he's like, well, I dreamed about it last night. So that was kind of spooky on that notion, but he just, when are you leaving? That was the only thing he had to ask. And he's like, well, you've been dreaming of it your whole life. So, that was something that I really wanted to do, and it took me a lot to get there, because I don't know if I'd told you this before, but I had accepted the Air Force Academy right out of high school. I'd had some hearing loss, and upon taking a hearing exam to the Air Force, I was medically discharged there. So it took me a fight to get into the Army, but it made it. I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma for basic training and graduated from Fort Sill. And upon there, I stood up 3rd Brigade 1st ID out of Fort Hood. We cased the colors in Germany and stood up in Fort Hood. Whenever I first got there, it was a really new experience, only having 15 people in an entire brigade. So that was interesting. But as you know, I married Elizabeth very, very shortly after getting the hood, and we got pregnant. And well, before we got pregnant, I took an exam to go learn Arabic and got selected to go learn Arabic. Yeah. So I got out to Monterey, California, and 2 weeks later found out we was pregnant with our first kid. So I learned Arabic, got back from there and went to NTC, and then I deployed after Eli was born. 2 weeks after being deployed, found out she was pregnant with Aiden. So that was a surprise. Big time. So I deployed when Eli was...
See, you took Dad's words truly. Multiply. If you want good seed in the world, you have more babies, and God said multiply, not add. And so,
oh yeah. So from 2000, I deployed the first deployment in 2008. But prior to that, I was at Presidio of Monterey. So we got married June 23rd. On the 25th is when my commander called and said, hey, I got good news and bad news. Good news is you're going to Monterey. Bad news is your wife ain't going. So that was kind of a shock for the beginning of our marriage. But I got to come home, see Eli born. And then I deployed in, May of 2000. No, it might have been. It was a little after June. 2008, I deployed in June. 2 weeks after getting in country, found out we was pregnant with Aiden. So I came home at 9 months pregnancy, and Eli was a year and no, he was just turning a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 days later, we had Aiden. So 2 weeks later, I was back in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So I kind of lost myself at first deployment, big time. Being married, having 2 kids, and not having emotion. You kind of get to a point where you turn a switch off.
Yeah.
So you learn to take all your negative, and if you don't have the ability to turn off that emotion, then it can truly eat at you. And whenever I got home, it really did eat at me. My career, my livelihood got put in jeopardy because I lost my hearing even further while I was deployed, and I got hit pretty bad in 2009. So I went through what's called an MMRB board, a MOS Medical Review Board.
Mm.
So I had to get some letters of recommendation to stay in. Got a letter of recommendation from General Odinero to stay in as long as I reclassed to a non-noise hazardous, non-noise hazardous, non-combat MOS. So I chose logistics. I'm like, well, if I can't be right there, then I'll have my hands on everything. Well, that played out great because I went right back to a LURS unit. So it was good, but overall, I've come a long way in my journey with Christ. I mean, I can say that I think that I lost my way while being deployed, especially in 2011, 2012. You kind of, again, put everything on autopilot and owe mom and dad a great thanks because they took Liz in both deployments and made an apartment upstairs and took a lot of stress off of me, but it also made me not have to worry. And I think that was where me coming back that last time was. We had been married for 4.5 years, and I'd only been home for roughly 18 months of that, and had 3 kids at that point. So that was me getting off the plane in 2012, and Isaac had never met me before, and him knowing who I was a testament to who Liz was as a mother, to show that, hey, my son didn't forget who I was. My other 2 children walked around with phones thinking, hey, Daddy, look at this. But to have your 8-month-old son who you've never met and he's only heard your voice over a phone, to know who I was and pick me out. I mean, it wasn't that difficult. I was shorter than everybody else. So, I mean, it wasn't that difficult for him to pick me out. But for an 8-month-old to know exactly who his father was while we're all dressed the same, that was impressive. And I think that was the beginning of my journey to find Christ again and to really find love again. Because I knew that I loved my wife and I knew that I loved my kids, but I didn't have any emotions for it. But to have the pure satisfaction of your 8-month-old son who you've never met, know who you are and feel comfortable with you, that was the beginning of my reconciliation with Christ and myself.
So with all of this stuff, I know you and I have had conversations about places you've been, things you've seen. I've had conversations with other people in the military that there are certain things we will never talk about publicly, radio, even privately, because it's not necessary. But I know that it takes a toll long term. Whether or not it's PTSD, hearing loss, night terror, stuff like that. I know that you've come a long way in that journey, and I know that God's healed you in a lot of those things. What do you think is because I know there's going to be other military guys and law enforcement guys that talk, because I know you've done that journey. Mine was law enforcement, yours military, you did law enforcement. We think an awful lot alike. Those first responders, those groups of people tend to trust and rely on that same group of people. There's a brotherhood, there's a linkage that's there when you've whether or not there's a different linkage for combat and law enforcement, even though they're both wars, they're just a different kind, different things. But if I know there are going to be other military people and first responders that are going to be listening. You've made a huge change in your life. I've watched a huge change in your life from different deployments, coming home, being gone. You say you lost your way. I know that God has brought you back to be a very strong, mature, godly man in your house and in our church. What do you think has been some of the key pieces of that have grounded you in who you are today that God's done in your life?
I'm going to be truthful about it.
I will hope so.
Having people pray for me, because there was a time that I was not praying for myself. When I say I lost my way or I lost myself, it was you have a tendency to not trust people, not trust your surroundings. We get trained under stress to expect the unexpected. And in the civilian world, one of the biggest things you can't control is what's going on around you. Everybody has our free will, which is our freedom, which is something that we fought for. We want you to be able to do anything that's within your right. And I will always, it doesn't matter whether I agree with what you're doing or not, I fought for you to have that right. So by all means, I'm going to protect that right. But at the same time, we get to a point where we just don't trust. We don't trust our environment. We don't trust people. And you say that brotherhood. That brotherhood is the only thing in our minds that we can trust. I mean, it gets to a point where you don't even trust your family, outside of the family that you made, because that brotherhood, it's one thing to say that, hey, I'm always going to have your back. It's another thing for somebody to say, I've got your six, because they've laid down themselves to protect you. You've been in firefights with them. They have been there side by side, and they did cover your six. So it's a total nother thing on the civilian sector to say that I'll always have your back. But when you know somebody has displayed that, when you know that they're there, they're going to be your family for life. And when you get out, it really took a toll on me, because I kind of lost my purpose. I lost my drive. I lost my dedication. So I bounced around different careers trying to find what I was missing. And you being in law enforcement, me being in law enforcement, was two different generations. That brotherhood was not there for me in law enforcement.
Yeah.
So I found something else. And that to me is line work. Me building power lines, and now me teaching power lines. That brotherhood in the power line industry and the utility industry is the closest thing that I've found, because the same way I was whenever I was deployed, you spend so much time with these people that those are the ones that are your family. You spend more time with your soldiers than you do your own family. And now in the utility industry, I spend more time with my linemen, my apprentices, my ground hands than I do with my family, or I did while I was working as a foreman or as a lineman. So that brotherhood really, really started to, I think line work saved me also in my journey with Christ, because it made me realize that, hey, my family is important. I do what I do. And if you ask Elizabeth, I do anything that's risky, anything that can get me killed or shot at or whatever. But you can't turn off adrenaline. You can. It's something that you become addicted to. But at the same time, as we get older, we learn logic and we learn reason, and we take the skill set that we've taken throughout our career and applied it into our general industry as we have today. And I think overcoming the emotionless aspect really was having somebody pray for me. And Liz prayed for me for a long time. I know you did. I know Mom did. I know Dad did. That's my saving grace. I'm going to be honest. And it was having somebody that's willing to stand by and put up with me when the only emotion I knew how to express was anger. Because I truly believe that one of our most primitive instincts of man is to dominate. On the most primitive level would be, I know there's a podcast, but I'm going to say God put us on this earth to procreate and dominate. He gave us dominion over all things. And the most primitive instinct of man, whenever I say dominate, when you don't have any other emotion, you don't know how to express any other emotion. The only emotion that does come out is that most primitive instinct. I don't think that we're born knowing what love is. We're not born knowing what emotion is or empathy is, but you are born to know how to take over something. Mm-hmm. That's genetically bred into us. I truly believe that. So learning how to come to peace with it, but also learn how to change that anger back into emotion, because that anger was there because I didn't know what I was feeling. I didn't know why in my heart I didn't have feelings for my family. I knew in my mind that I loved them. I knew in my mind that I cherished them, and I would give my life for them. I'd lay down for them. I would give any organ in my body or my last breath. But to not truly have emotion on what most people call emotion, that's hard.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things that I think that I've been able to overcome, which came through a lot of prayer, came with a lot of reasoning on changing my mentality. Let's see. I can tell you I wouldn't be who I am today without the prayer that was there to protect me while I was deployed, or even while I was stateside, whether it be working over the road, whether it be working in law enforcement, working as a utility lineman. Without the prayer that was there behind it, then I wouldn't be where I am today. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
You mentioned brotherhood and family, and I know your emotions and your empathy for your family has come leaps and bounds. We're both ugly criers when we cry. For whatever reason, the last couple months ago, we had a moment on the platform at church, and that camera guy zoomed in really great with both of us being ugly criers.
Oh, that's lovely.
It was a great picture.
Show all the wrinkles in our
everything.
Too.
I mean, it hit all of it. It's like even the red face kind of looking like kind of thing. What does, and I know this is a loaded question, and I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyways. What does family mean to you?
I'm gonna give you my ruling. Okay, the blood that we have through our veins does not make up family, and I learned that through the military. I'm very loyal, as you are as well, but I look at it like this: I have a bubble, and let's say that bubble is ever expanding or ever contracting.
True.
And it took me coming to the realization I don't make the choice whether or not you're inside my bubble or not. You do. If you choose to be inside of my bubble, then I'm going to give you every possible thing that I possibly can.
Everything I have at my disposal.
There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I will protect you. I will give you the shirt off my back. I'll give you the last dollar to my name. But if you choose to be outside of that bubble, then I have nothing. Nothing that you can do is going to interfere with what's going on inside of my bubble. And that's what I think finally gave me my peace and my solitude. Was I used to take a lot of, I'm going to say, false burden bearing or guilt and the inability to help somebody that didn't want to be helped. As you know, with my mother and other cases that were, you've tried and tried and tried and tried, and it didn't. And my mother's come an extremely long way, and I'll always be there. You pick up the phone and you call me, you reestablish that connection, I'm there. But I'm not going to dwell on you not choosing to be there. I can't dwell. I can't change the actions of somebody else. So you ask what my family or what my definition of a family, or what does it mean to me? It means that I'm going to be there for you no matter what. I will drive 10,000 miles to protect you. No matter what the cost is, I'm going to be there. I will lay down my life to save yours. And truthfully, having somebody feel the exact same way. My father raised me that if I had the ability to help, then always help. If I don't have the ability, don't help. But if I'm driving down the road and I've got a 1/2 inch impact and a thing of sockets and I see somebody with a flat tire, it's not in me to keep driving.
Or fifth wheel.
All right. Or fifth wheel camper that falls off of somebody's truck. All right. If I have the ability to help, that I can speed their time up.
Yeah.
I can make it safer for them. I have a truck with strobes. I can block off traffic and I can assist.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't have my tools with me, then I'm not going to do you any favor by me stopping, getting out and getting in your way and taking over. But if I can offer you the tools that I have to make it faster for you to get off back on the road,
Mm-hmm.
by all means, it's not in me not to stop. So that with me for a long time was I would overextend me and Elizabeth whenever it came to helping others that was not willing to return that favor.
Mm-hmm.
So it made me really think about that bubble. If you're outside of that bubble and something's going on in your life, I'm not going to attempt to help if you don't ask for the help.
Mm-hmm.
But if you ask, if you reestablish, I'm going to be there. So my family, having my loyalty, having my back, and knowing that they feel the same way, I think that's my biggest definition.
I know that you've helped a lot of people over the years, sometimes to a detriment. And I know that you've come back with stories from time to time to where people have actually reciprocated and been there to help. We were coming back from Myrtle Beach, and I think you guys you blew a tire on your trailer,
Yeah.
and a guy pulled over and stopped and said, "Here's my tools. Ship them to me later."
Yeah.
Just because you put it out there to help someone, and God easily repaid that back to you in time. I mean, we're talking like multiple times over time and time again. There's something about that. When you lay down your life for another person, you've known this in military, law enforcement, as a husband, as a father. We when we lay down our lives for our family and our kids and the people that God puts around us to protect, a lot of times it feels very lonely. It feels like we are the ones putting out. But there's those times when God comes back around and says, okay, because you did this, or you need some help. He just put somebody in your place to make sure that we are taken care of. And I know that for as much as you have given and served both this country, your family, my family, to see those moments that God kind of just supplies you with something, whether or not it's on the side of the road or a blessing of a house or a blessing of different things that God's giving you in your life. It's well-deserved in your world. You've done a lot to serve people, and it's pretty cool to watch people have your back and drop things in your lap.
Well, thinking about how I was raised, I mean, my father's not the most religious individual in the world, but he taught me morals and he taught me.
There's
ethics.
Religions and then there's spiritual.
Yes.
I'll go with spiritual any day of the week over religion.
He might not be the most, I can't say that he's not spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
He's very spiritual in his own way. But whenever it comes to religion, he was never, I don't need to go to church and this, that, and the other. But the morals and the character and the intestinal fortitude that I gained from him was leaps and bounds. But one of the things that he used to tell me was everything comes back 10 times fold.
Yeah.
And I've taken that with me, one, throughout my career, but also throughout my life. If you asked me for $10, I'm going to give you $10. But if you ask to borrow $10, then I'm going to expect that $10 in return. If you failed to return that $10, that $10 was going to cost you $100 one way or the other, because it comes back tenfold. And even with that type of mentality of loaning things out and not getting it back, it's going to come back to bite you tenfold. God has showed me time and time again that everything that I've given out to the world has been returned, not just tenfold. I mean 100-fold. There's no way to truly admit or to truly begin to describe the many different ways that God has protected me when I needed protecting, has given me the things that I needed when sometimes I didn't even know that I needed them. With our house and our land. I mean, when you stop trying to do things your own way and you physically ask for guidance and say it's in your way, it's in your time, it's in his time, it comes back. There's no question about it. So yeah, I've given up my time, which to me, people say that time is one of the best and worst currencies in the world. It's something that we can continue to give, but we never get it back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I have that mentality that I can give you my time but never get it back, then I'm never going to do anything for anybody else. But if I can give you my time knowing that my time is going to be restored at the end of my life, which is truly just the beginning, then what is time? Time to me is a made up faction of life. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Dad would say we're eternal.
We are.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't look at a time as a currency. All right. I can give you my time and not expect to be repaid because you can't give me my time back, but God can.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned Eli, Aiden, and Isaac. What do you hope that your boys learn from you? Well, your kids, because there's Donna Lynn as well. What do you hope your kids learn from your experiences in your life that will prepare them for the future?
The only thing that I can hope is one, to be a better man and a better father, better husband, a better parent than I am. That's first and foremost. That's all I can ever hope for. I'm going to take it back to Army real quick, and there's an acronym in the Army called leadership. And it's loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. I hope that I can raise them with high enough morals that they're willing to stop and help, that they're willing to put others in front of themselves. That's a matter of being selfless and have them not have a concept of time. I say that, but at the same time, I want them to be responsible and manage their time. But as a father, you ask me, what do I expect of them? One, I expect them to make the mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're going to make mistakes.
Yeah, we did.
We're human. We still do every single day. Like 2 years ago, and deciding to race a razor up a right away and realize that I don't have the same shocks as he does. Flip off and shatter my foot at my wife's birthday party. We make stupid decisions, right? But the Army taught me how to fall. So, I mean, there is that.
I remember that phone call.
I hope that I can instill the best wisdom / I don't believe in common sense.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in common knowledge. I don't believe in common sense.
Gotta preach.
So I hope that I can give them the best set of skills and the knowledge to make the wisest decision in the stupidest of situations. If I can do that, then I have good faith that they're going to survive. And I want to give them a thirst for knowledge. People say that I have a photographic memory, but that's truthfully not the case at all. If I'm interested in something, I study it. Mm-hmm. And I've incorporated different learning techniques in order for me to be able to recall it or memorize it. If I can give them those types of skills where they have an interest to learn, even some of the most boring aspects of life, then they can make the wisest decision in the stupidest situation. I'm not going to say MacGyver things, but I'm going to say have the ability to fix things that need to be fixed in life. So
a little duct tape and a pocket knife, we can fix anything.
Paperclip fixes a fuel linkage, I promise you. On a 1966 Chevy 2 Nova broke down at a gas station.
There's always a way.
So I said that I don't believe in common sense. To me, we gain common knowledge by one of our five senses.
Yeah.
All right, whether that be our touch, whether our taste, our sight, hearing, or smell. We gain knowledge through those. Like me telling my children, all right, don't touch that stove, it's hot. Mm-hmm. You're not going to learn from my common knowledge.
No.
It's not going to be until you've used one of your five senses to reach out there and touch it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to be that individual that says it more than once. You're going to learn one way or the other that, hey, that stove is hot. But I also have to look at that in my adult life and understand that I said common sense doesn't exist. Common knowledge does. Common knowledge is different from generation to generation.
Mm-hmm.
It's different from region to region or area to area. Something that is common to someone in Atlanta is not common to somebody that is me down here.
Yeah.
The amount of people that don't know how to change a tire or even inflate their tire is crazy to me. But I have to take that understanding in my mind when I'm talking to somebody, especially apprentices. You aren't raised the same way I was. My father knows how to plant anything that there's a possibility to plant.
Mm-hmm.
He knows how to harvest. It's something that he grew up doing. It's something that his father grew up doing. I hate gardening. Something I know a lot about it, but I refuse to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like playing in the dirt. That's why I build power lines overhead and not underground. All right. I spend enough time in the dirt. I don't care to spend any time in the dirt now. So even though I may have some knowledge behind how to do it, I can't tell you how deep I need to dig down in the soil. I can't tell you what the greatest thing is to fertilize it. All right. That's my wife. She's going to be doing the garden, not me, because I'm not going to. But that's beside the point. I believe that common knowledge transcends generations.
Yeah, it does.
So what was common to you as a police officer was not common to me as a police officer. And I have to take that in my adult learning, as an instructor as well, is I can't expect somebody to know because I can deal with ignorance. Mm-hmm. Ignorance is just simply not knowing something.
That's right.
I can't deal with stupidity. That's where
it's a choice.
It goes out the window for me. So when it comes to my kids, I have to take that reasoning of I don't do stupidity and I have to bring it back into myself because they're going to make stupid choices. Yep. All right. But I also have to understand that it's not going to be until they've made that stupid decision and made a wise decision in that stupid situation.
Hopefully they learn from the wise decision, not the consequences of the dumb one.
Well, if they didn't, they're going to gain a little bit of common knowledge by using one of those five senses.
Yeah, we will.
Because Daddy's hands, soft and kind when I was crying, Daddy's hands will be hard as steel when they've done wrong. So, that's me.
If you could, in your journey, in your progression of journey, if you could tell, as we start to kind of wrap up and close today, if you could reach out and talk to the people out there, what is some key words of advice, whether it's to military, former military, I guess it's former military, but never former Marine, whatever that group, how that works out.
They always eat crayons. It's not a big deal.
See, I can't make that comment. That'd get me hurt. You can say that. I can't.
I keep a box in my truck. It's not a problem.
One of my kids asked me one day, it's like, Dad, why is there jokes about Marines and crayons? I said, I'm not going to answer that question at all. I'll find you a Marine. They can explain it to you themselves. I'm not doing that. I don't need that target.
It goes back and forth.
If there were something a piece of advice, an encouragement to people struggling with the same thing that you did to help them in their journey to what God's done in your life that you could share with them, I give you the mic.
So, me personally, I do not believe in depression. That's me.
Mm-hmm.
I believe you have a choice to have a good day or have a bad day. Every day. If you choose to have a good day, it's going to be almost impossible to have a bad day. It's going to take an act of God. But what's going to change that is how you perceive data in life. And this is what truly, I think, began my journey back into finding myself and who I am and my relationship with God. One, I've been told that I was depressed. I've been told I've had anxiety. I've been told that I've had PTSD. I've been diagnosed with PTSD and traumatic brain injury, which migraines and sleep apnea and everything else is repercussions of that. But if I don't accept it and I continue to pray to defeat it and continue to know that God's going to heal me of these things, mind, body, and spirit, that He is the ultimate choice. He has that decision to make. So, one, I have to ask for it. I have to ask to be healed of those things, but also I have to change my way of thinking. So I look at life as being Mount Everest. Everybody has to climb Mount Everest. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And you start at like base camp 0, and you pack all your supplies with no knowledge of what is to be expected in ahead. You pack all your supplies, you take a little preparation course from a Sherpa or whatever, and you set off on your journey. All right. And a lot of times that Sherpa is probably our parents. They're the ones that try their best to let us know everything that's going to be expected without knowing the unexpected. So we started at base camp 0 with our Sherpa. We've got everything packed, and we set off on our journey. And we start climbing Mount Everest. And then the first big storm comes, and we realized, hey, man, we really was not prepared for this. We didn't pack what we needed to pack. We didn't pack the clothes that we needed to pack. We didn't have the supplies that we needed. So we had two choices to make. We can continue our climb and live in the suck, or we can turn back and we can take our common knowledge that we've now gained and we can resupply. So let's say that I'm that individual that either one, I'm not going to say that I chose to continue to suck because I've been that route as well. Eventually, you're going to find yourself back at the beginning to resupply. Let's say that I go back to that base camp store and I resupply, and I'm researching my journey because now I know what my Everest is. So I'll begin that climb again. I get from base camp 1 to base camp, or base camp 0 to base camp 1. And I spend the night, and I get up in the next morning, and that hike wasn't that bad. Now I'm going from base camp 1 to base camp 2. And en route to base camp 2, just this storm overcomes me. Avalanche, snow, everything. I get buried. I have a choice to make. Now I've researched this, I've prepared for it. Do I choose to continue the journey knowing that I have the supplies that I have? Or do I choose to go back home? Well, I'm going to choose to dig myself out, pack my stuff back up, and continue that climb. Now I get from base camp 1 to base camp 2, and I might have met a couple people. Everything was going good. But this is where envy and jealousy comes into play, because people are going to be envy and jealous of you on your journey to Everest. So you set up your tent. Everything's good. But in the middle of the night while you're sleeping, you forgot to put stakes in your tent, or somebody pulled your stakes and pushed you down a mountain. Well, if I forgot to put the tent stakes in and the wind blew me back down the mountain, I have to look at my own self. That's my responsibility. But if somebody took them out, then I can use that as nobody's ever going to let me get ahead, or it's going to give me that motivation to push through and to continue to climb. So they pushed me back down. It's okay. I packed my stuff back up and I continue to climb. But today's climb is so much easier than yesterday's climb because I've been here before. Now I know my tripping hazards. Now I know what rocks are loose. I can follow the path from the previous day and continue to climb, knowing the knowledge that I've gained. So I get to base camp 2 again, and I set up camp, or I continue to climb. I choose to climb through. And now let's say I meet a couple people that are absolutely amazing. They're allowing me to use their anchor lines. They're allowing me to use their guide ropes. Or I'm allowing them to do the same. When we have a complete whiteout, we can stay side by side and we continue that climb together. But at some point, I have to realize that their Everest is different than my own. So I have to come to the conclusion that, hey, I'm going to have to separate from these people in order to get to my Everest. Because I might get to a spot where I'm really comfortable. I'm really comfortable. We work together great. But are they going in the same direction that I need to go to my Everest? So I choose to separate. And now I'm excited. I can see Everest. It's a day away. I can see it. It's a tangible object now. And I'm excited, so I push through. And through all of the mistakes, the adversity, the storms, everything that's come at me throughout my journey is now coming to an end. Mm-hmm. I have overcome. I've climbed that mountain. And finally, I reach Everest, only to realize it was never Everest at all. Because Everest is truly above the clouds, and I could only get and see as far as I could see at that moment. Now I can take that and I can be defeated, or I can look at it and say, I would never be able to reach my Everest without being able to reach this point right here. So no matter how many times I get knocked down, no matter how many times I get pushed back or shoved, as long as I'm putting one foot in front of the other and continuing that climb, knowing that every day through adversity, today's an easier day because I've been here before. Mm-hmm. You can't knock me down farther than what I've already knocked myself down. You can't defeat me more than I've already defeated myself. Nothing can, not even the devil. So with God on that journey, he makes it easier. Because, yeah, that Sherpa, my parents, gave me the skills that I needed to succeed in life. But they didn't give me everything that I needed whenever it comes to spiritually, the ability to not break.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, is the biggest thing is that builds resiliency in life. The ability to bounce back through adversity. So I said that I don't believe in depression. I believe that we have the ability to interpret data. And I'm not going to say that I don't believe in people having chemical imbalances in their body through a medical condition or through whatever they're eating or whatever that can cause lonesomeness. But again, I believe that we have a choice to make. I can tell you that there was nights there was years that I couldn't go to sleep without being tormented. Mm-hmm. But until we do a root cause analysis of what is really causing that, I'm never going to be able to overcome it. What truly started that event? If I just walk through life and say I'm depressed, that's not me trying to find a solution or trying to find out why I feel the way that I feel. I went through anger management. I went through therapy in the military in regards to why am I as angry as I am. And I got recommended to take a chemical substance, a pill, to give me artificial happiness. And my answer will always be the same. You're not going to get me to take something that's going to alter my state of mind. If I'm happy, I want to know that I'm happy. Mm-hmm. If I'm sad, I want to know that I'm sad. If I'm angry, I want to know that I'm angry. I want to know that my blood's boiling in that moment. Mm-hmm. Because that's the way that God designed us. God gave us the ability to show and to feel emotion. And I lost that. So I'm not going to walk through life with a little cloud over my head saying, hey, you're doing a great job today. All right. I don't want somebody to have an artificial side of me. Yeah. I want them to know who I am as a real person. And I think that as long as you change your perception on how we perceive data, then it's truly going to change the outcome of your day, your life, and the ability to put one foot in front of the other to continue to climb Everest. Mm-hmm. Everybody needs to find their Everest.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you guys for hanging out with us today. Joseph, my brother, I seriously grateful. And I know it's not later on in the year, but I just want to tell you outright, thank you for all of your service across the board. We're celebrating Independence Day this week, and it isn't just what happened 1776. It's what you and your team and military have and first responders have done throughout the years to make sure we still have a freedom. Even if we don't, I love your statement. You said, even if I don't agree with what you're saying. I'm still going to defend your ability and freedom to say it. And I absolutely agree. And so I thank you for your service and for what Elizabeth has served behind the scenes across the board. And so for those of you that are out there and you're watching and maybe you're military, maybe you're law enforcement, I thank you for your service of what you've done to help us but help secure our freedoms that we get to celebrate. Our First Amendment, Second Amendment, everything that we've been given in our life to have freedom, the freedom of religion, the freedom of being able to read a Bible, to be able to pray in school, to pray out in the street, whatever. Thank you for all those that have given their lives, their time, their energy, their resources to give us this freedom. I pray that we never take it for granted. I'm going to, one quick little plug in the midst of this conversation. We've got the Momentum Conference in October 18th and 19th coming up this year. It'll be our first men's conference that we've hosted here. I'm really excited about it. It hurts me that Dad's not here to see it, but this is the season that we get to do that this year. I know I've got a group of 5 gentlemen that are going to come sit down and talk on a panel, all different ages. They're all in their 70s and 80s, but they've all come from different backgrounds, talking about where our world is at now, and what we need to do as men to help turn the tide back to a strong America, a strong representation of who men should be in the world, in the body, in the church, at home. And I'm really excited to see that conversation. 2 are military. Richard Guthrie is one of them. I wouldn't mess with that man. And then a couple other people that just a different perspective from different things of what we need to do to stand up and be men and represent our families and represent not just our blood families, but those that truly have our back, that we have theirs. And so it's October 18th and 19th. I hope all of you get to come. It is a men's conference. I know there's a question if women can sign up. I guess I can't stop you, but I'm going to recommend give this chance for the men. We've got a women's conference coming up in March of next year, I think it is. February or March, now I can't remember. I think it's February, actually. With that, brother, thank you so much. I'll pray and we'll get rolling for our events this week. And so, Father, thank you for today. Thank you for this opportunity to hear Joseph and his heart and all that he is. I know we've come around and around about talking about who each other are our heroes, and I really love this guy, and he's my brother, and there is no other definition of it. And I pray that those that are listening, those that are out there, can find those people in their life that if they need them, you got some that need to be solitary in moments, but those that need to have a backing, someone that have their 6 and have their life right there with them, help walk their Everest for a season to help them along their journey. Father, I pray that you bring those people into people's lives, that you pick and choose who's in their life to help them, who give them advice, who give them journeys along their trip to Everest, help them along their life. And Father, I pray that you continue to build up your church, your people, to be who you've called us to be. And I ask you continue to bless Hope of the Generations Church and Be in Health, and everyone that gets to listen to Hope Now. And in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, brother. And with that, we'll catch you guys on the next time. Later.